What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, joined once again by my guy Morgan Cannon, and this is your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, analysis, and so much more. Really happy to have you guys here with us on by the time you guys see this, it'll be Wednesday. Morgan, hopefully you enjoyed a really good Memorial Day, a really long weekend. I know for me personally, I was fortunate to have 4 days off, so it was nice little chance to just get a little bit of a breather.
Yeah, man, it's always nice when you can get those nice long weekends. We didn't do much, put together baby stuff, cooked on the grill. So it was exciting, though. Good time to get some stuff done. And it was nice. It was another nice day in Detroit, too. So if you're living in Detroit, shout out Mama Nature because it's beautiful today.
I hope you're like fully embracing like the dadisms. Like hopefully like you got in your sandals, your high socks, like the whole like grill master setup going on. Cause like that's like one of the best parts about being a dad is that you get to just man the grill and look like a G while you do it.
I'm saying, man, I'm out there in Lion stuff, typically chilling, doing, I always get the little click clack, like, Spice Adams,
Yep.
I love those Spice Adams skits, man. Shout out Spice. Another East Sider.
One thing I do got to get me an apron. Like I'm realizing like
yeah.
every year that goes by, I'm ruining a lot of shirts not having an apron. But I digress. Really happy to have you guys here. If you clicked on this video, obviously you know we are talking about Lions OTAs, which kick off. Like I said, if you're watching this on Wednesday, officially kick off today. And this is a really exciting time because, again, we are that much closer to the regular season kicking off. And this specific round of OTAs is really interesting because, Morgan, the Lions actually have one less week of OTAs and they don't have mandatory minicamp this year, obviously because they're playing in the Hall of Fame game. So Dan Campbell and obviously the rest of the coaching staff giving his players a little bit more leeway, a little bit more time to recover and things like that, so that they're not constantly hitting the pavement trying to get ready for the season. But this first round of OTAs is one to really hone in on.
Yeah, and for all the people out there, Dan Campbell's a meathead, blah blah blah. Like now, he really he listens to his analytics team. I'm sure he listens to his strength and conditioning staff a ton. And it's a heavy load, man. The Lions have played late into the year, 2 years in a row, and then they, like you said, they got the Hall of Fame game, so they got their season, gets underway. Their training camp gets underway earlier than everybody else's. So yeah, I'm happy about this. Just kind of accelerates the timeline. And but yeah, there'll be some good stuff to watch this week, just because it's basically the phase 3, right? So they're going to be doing some 7-on-7, some 9-on-7, and some 11-on-11. So no pads, remember, OTAs, no pads, no contact. Was it 2 years ago they lost 2 or 3 years ago when they lost the draft? They lost the.
Yeah, because they actually did have some contact. And I'm always curious on like when they see by like no contact, because obviously if you're doing 11-on-11, like there's going to be a little bit, like the's going to be some challenging receivers and things like that. Same with 7-on-7. So it's going to be interesting again how Dan kind of learned from that mistake and obviously keeps everyone's tempers and excitement, to a respectable level for the next few days.
Yeah, you can compete without that happening, and it's tough because football is inherently a physical sport. So it's good. It's really good work for other people, like skill players, things of that nature, quarterbacks for timing. But for O line, D line, it's a different game entirely. To be honest, with no pads and not being able to be physical, so something to keep in mind. But there are things to watch because the Lions have a lot of continuity too. I'm sure that's why Dan Campbell is cool with making this kind of call, right, Miko? Because at the end of the day, yes, they're changing coordinators, offensively and defensively. But at the end of the day, it's really not that much going to be changing. I feel like there's going to be a lot of carryover. So that is helpful in this situation because, like we talked about, everything's accelerated with them playing in the Hall of Fame game. Are you going to go to that?
I don't think so. I would love to, but I'm more than happy just to watch it from home because we all know it's all going to be a bunch of second and third and probably fourth string players that are mostly going to play in those games. So it's going to be a great opportunity if you're a huge Ahmed Hassanin fan. You're probably going to get to see a lot of him. A lot of looks at possibly Broderick Martin, a lot of the other 6th and 7th round draft picks that the Lions have had over the last few years. So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for that. Speaking of OTAs kicking off this week, there are, like you said, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. And I think we typically do a video like this every year before OTAs kick off because I think it's a good reminder, whether you're a longtime Lions fan or a relatively new fan as far as following the team this closely, to just kind of keep these things in mind because there are so many different workouts that happen throughout the offseason. you're like, okay, what's an OTA? What's training camp? What are those like? What's the difference between the two? One of the key differences, like Morgan pointed out with OTAs, is the lack of contact. So no pads. Typically, everyone's just out there in their practice jersey and shorts. I think you probably will also still have helmets and things like that. But again, it's non-contact, so it's a lot of getting good work in. Like you said, a lot of good work for skills positions for those guys that are in the trenches. A lot of opportunities to work on technique and things like that.
Mental
But you
reps.
just don't exactly. But you just don't have that physical element of the game. Another key difference between OTAs, at least this version of OTAs and training camp, is that these are voluntary. So I think that's one of the first things that I really want to hit on, Morgan. These are voluntary. And as much as you're going to hear about who is reporting and who is seen and who is not seen, do not allow that to allow you to like create narratives about certain players, about certain players' contracts. A lot of these veteran players, especially if you've been in the league for a long time, typically don't show up to these, or they may not show up on the first day, or they may not even show up in the first week because they're already in their own workout program that they've already kind of mastered over the course of their career.
Yeah, and like situation dictates, right? But like you said, if you're a veteran and you're staying somewhere else, like not in Michigan, you're not from here, and you got kids, shoot, I'd stay too because I'm soaking up my off time, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to chill. I'm working on things, and every player where they live, typically they have their own whole setup, whether it's like a recovery where they're getting stem massages, things like that. They typically have position specific trainers where they're living, so they got it all, dietitians, you name it. So yeah, I get why people are like everyone should be there. I understand that
Mm-hmm.
perspective, but at the end of the day, like I'm not going to freak out about it. And maybe people are recovering. Someone might be recovering from an injury that the team doesn't have to disclose, right? Because it's the off
Yep.
season. So there's no injury report in the off season. So yeah, it could be a myriad of things, like you said, Miko. So yeah, best to not read too much into it. Just point blank, period, right?
And I'm talking to all of you people that have like all of this stuff to say about Alex Anzalone right now. Like, I get it, right? You haven't seen Alex, and a lot of people are, as one of like the captains of the defense, people probably are expecting him to be there, especially with the Lions having a changeover in defensive coordinators. But I think you all forget that like Kelvin Shepard has been here from the beginning. He doesn't always, he doesn't necessarily need, to have Alex Anzalone in the building. And I also think there's a lot to when it comes to Alex specifically, like he is one of those guys that I look at that I like that we are very well known of. Like he has his own off-season workout program, that he has like a group of guys that he works out with down in Florida, that he does live in Florida. He does have small children. Like they're like you said, there's a lot of other, factors that could possibly go into him not being in Allen Park this upcoming week. And I think some people have been quick to jump on the home bandwagon, like maybe he wants a new contract because he's in the last year of his deal. He doesn't have any more guaranteed money. And that is possible. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not true. But I also think Alex, probably more than any other Lions player here, Morgan, should know that this organization has taken care of him and has always made sure to, like, when it came time for him to get his due and to be recouped, he's that's been like something that they've done without very little hesitation.
Yeah, I mean, they gave him the extension in 2023. He's been an integral part of their success. Don't get, we're not saying anything other than that.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a 31-year-old linebacker. So we'll see. Like they could extend him for like, maybe like put in a little bit of more guaranteed money this year, kind of leave that
Mm-hmm.
door open for next year, and just kind of see where things stand. There's ways around it where they can finagle things, and but like they have money invested in that position group, so I understand the perspective opposing paying someone like Anzalone too, just because you invested in Jack Campbell, you invested in Derek Barnes, and then we already know the story with the defensive line, and with
Yeah.
Hutchinson definitely getting paid soon, in my opinion, especially once they see he's still an alien over there dueling with Sewell. So yeah, I think it's fine. If either way you stand, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to think about it at this point, but it'll be something to monitor because basically he doesn't have to report until training camp now, because like we talked about at the jump from the beginning of the video, there's Dan Campbell's not doing that final week of OTAs or the
Mm-hmm.
mandatory mini camp. So people are going to be speculating for a while, probably.
And I trust me, I get it. The signing of Zach Cunningham probably doesn't help my argument, probably a ton, but I still think even if, like I said, Alex is someone that this team has prioritized, like you said, they've always, seen him as a key component of this defense. I would highly doubt that he's just ghost and that no one knows where he's at or what he plans on doing this offseason. So bringing in someone like Zach Cunningham possibly could just be that added depth throughout these workouts. And maybe you just want to look at a linebacker that throughout his career has been a really good contributor. And I think it's also worth pointing out, we still don't know when Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be available in the regular season. So that's another high contributing linebacker that you could potentially need. So it's another thing to monitor, like in OTAs, is Alex Anzalone's status. But I think at the same time, it also is a good example of like why attendance can be important, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't, with Cunningham, he was really productive for a little while there, but man, like 2023, if I'm remembering correctly, he was like just did not play,
Mm-hmm.
inactive. And I don't really know what happened. I know he's had trouble with against the run, like when teams get, teams can get downhill against him. And, he's a tall linebacker, he's long limbed. So yeah, if they want to get a look at him in the spring, see what happens, there's room there because they cut Abraham Beauplan. If you guys remember him playing a little bit last year when everything, when
Yeah.
all the injuries had, hit. So yeah, there's nothing, no harm in it. And with Anzalone, we know what we're getting at this point: a really good player, a really instinctive and smart player. So yeah, if he doesn't show up till before the Hall of Fame game, I'm not going to blame him, and I don't think the Lions will either.
No, not at all. Speaking of which, staying on the defensive side of the football, I think another thing that I'm really going to be keeping an eye on, Morgan, throughout this first couple days of OTAs is just like the shuffling of that defensive line, right? We know that the Lions won't have Aleem McNeil out there because obviously he's still recovering from his ACL tear. So that does leave a void at defensive tackle. But like you said, we're getting Aiden Hutchinson back. He was recently cleared, so should be a full participant in OTAs. We'll see how much the Lions actually allow him to do. You also have Marcus Davenport. We'll see how healthy he is and if he's able to be out there playing that opposite end. But again, with so many statuses kind of like up in the air, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Lions shuffle that group. Like, what does that first team look like for your defensive line? What does the second team of the defensive line look like? Because they have a lot of bodies to play defensive line as of right now in the offseason. But it's going to be interesting to see how they mix and match them. Does Levi get more opportunities at the three tech, or do they start trying to give out as that big end a little bit more early in the offseason? Or do they decide to, give someone like Tyleik Williams some more opportunities to run with the ones in Aleem's, absence? It's really going to be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest takeaway, if you can really take one from OTAs, is personnel groupings, like who they're trying to get a look at. Keep in mind it's the end of May, but at the end of the day, they're still trying to, like, okay, what's this look like with, like you talked about, Levi here and Tyleik here. Who's going to be out there opposite of Hutchinson. I do think they'll give Hutchinson a full, because he said he was fully cleared. So I think they'll kind of, OTAs isn't
Mm-hmm.
too intense as it is. So I think they'll let him have like a full slate, if you will, of work for the little work that they get during that time period. So, but other than that, yeah, there's going to be offensive line, like you mentioned, right? Is Ratledge going to be in between Sewell and Ragnow right away? Are they going
Mm-hmm.
to like see what Graham looks like back at right guard, or Mahogany at left guard? There's a million ways they could do it, but we know the three are not moving anytime soon, so that's nice. But yeah, that's kind of what I pay attention to the most this time of year, is what they're trying to, because that's all you're really trying to do at this point, is like get a look at what it could look like potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, it's personnel groupings, and so it's also like seeing like how fast or how does someone get moved up pretty quickly? How much are they getting, again, opportunities with the first team versus the second team? Guys that have been developing, is anybody moving up that we saw were primarily working with the third team last year? Does anybody get those opportunities with the second team this year? So those are things to keep an eye on, like you said, on both sides of the line, right, offensive and defensive line, because there is a lot of shuffling that can happen. Probably a little bit more on the offensive line, just because I think there's a lot more questions, especially amongst the fans, about both guard spots. So, like you said, does Graham immediately just slide in at left and that's where they keep him, or do they let him bounce back and forth between right? And if they do, then that gives you a lot of variance between Graham, Christian Mahogany, Tate Ratledge, and I'll even throw Miles Frazier in there because I think he could be like a dark horse that could push for, a a starter type of competitor, when we start to get into the padded parts of the offseason, just because of how versatile he is. So I think that's something to keep an eye on, like you said, in this first few days, just to see what that grouping looks like and what the Lions are at least initially thinking, because we know by the time training camp comes around, this is all going to get changed around.
Exactly. It's always going to be shuffled by the time the pads come on and it really starts to matter. So, but it's it's still fun to. I get it. We're at the football starved point of
Mm-hmm.
the off season already, and we still got a ways to go. To be honest with you, but I understand it. We take it where we can get it, and there'll still be things like I would love to read that like Giovanni Manu looks just more at home, like his feet look cleaner, like
Yes.
footwork looks good. Like that'd be a big positive for me. Maybe to Slaw, that'd be another one to watch, just because what are they going to throw at him right away? Right? Are they just going to okay, sit behind Tim Patrick, watch what he does, and just bank mental reps and then make your reps count? Or are they going to
Mm-hmm.
be like, get some work at the Y, get some work at the X? Because that might be a lot for him. I've been thinking about that just because I think he's going to be up for it. I hope he is, because it could be a really fun pick and a really fun player. But that learning curve is going to be steep, from Hillsdale, Arkansas to the Detroit Lions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something that I think that it wouldn't surprise me if the Lions did throw like the whole workload at him, just because they expect their receivers to be able to line up everywhere, right? And so he's one of those guys that not only can he line up just about everywhere when you talk about lining up as the X, as the Y, as the Z, and be able to go into motion and things like that. He's also played a lot from the slot, from that Y position. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we're going to teach you a lot of things about the X, but we're also going to give you, again, some nuggets here and there playing at the Y. So again, like if nothing else, to keep his morale high, to keep his, hope if he's struggling at the X, at least he can maybe do some things really well at the Y. That's again wishful thinking, because he may have to line up against Brian Branch, and that's still going to be a tough task. There is no easy work in this secondary. But it's going to be something like you said. That's another player that I am going to have, like a very specific player that I'm going to have eyes on, because I just kind of want to see, how well does he make that adjustment to the pro game and being able to work against the likes of DJ Reed, being able to work against the likes of Terrion Arnold. If they do throw him into the slot, how do you handle, Amik Robertson, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph? Like, are you able to deal with this, like I said, a very talented secondary where there are no days off, there are no plays off, and can he still make a really good impact?
Yeah, and how quickly can you acclimate to the jump in talent, right? Because like you talked about, the secondary is talented now, folks. Like there
Mm-hmm.
are really no easy passes. Like even you get to the second team and you're going against Ennis Rakestraw if you're lined up outside. Because I'm expecting big things from him this year. Like I'm really high on Ennis Rakestraw still. I'm really high on Terrion Arnold. Okay, I'm
I was gonna say that's another two guys that, like, again, had good off seasons last year. Ennis obviously struggled with injuries, so we weren't able to really see him come regular season a whole lot. So yeah, like how much have they grown since last year? Because that's your first and second round picks of last year, and are they still improving and still being able to go out there and heavily contribute? There's a number of different players. We talked about it in our film study last week about Amin Hassanin. Like he's another guy that I think is still going to have a lot of eyes on him, even though there's no pads and even though there's no contact. We talked about a lot in his film, like, hey, technique. Can he learn how to chain moves together? So obviously that'll require a lot of bag work, a lot of things like that. And does he just look more smooth? Does he look more sudden? Those are the types of things that I'm like another thing that I'm just going to be really excited about with players like him, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw. You mentioned Giovanni Manu. Like, is technique getting better? Because that's another key thing to focus on during these early parts of OTAs.
Yep. Make every rep count, man. Like it's the best work you're going to get in the off season in terms of like working in a team setting, because
Mm-hmm.
you're going to, all these guys work on their craft 24/7, 365, like working, so I get it. But in a team setting, this is the best work you're going to get until, it's training camp time and it's really go time. You know what I mean? Like that's a slow ramp. With the new CBA and everything, or the newest CBA, there's a ramp up period to everything. So the NFL is really diligent about that. They don't really just go from, like back in the day, it was like, all right,
Yeah.
2 days of walkthrough, then live hitting. That's just not the way. That's how you get hurt. So it's a ramp up period. This, like I said, it's no contact, but there's a lot to be gleaned from it, and I'm sure everyone's going to be writing stories how Hutchinson looks, like, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's what's going to sell. We know people
Well,
love 97.
I was gonna say, like, it's also like another thing about OTAs. It's kind of like you mentioned earlier about like how we're kind of like fans are kind of at the starving point in the off season, right? Like, there's football still a good ways away. I think we're still like 100 days out from the NFL, like from the season kicking off and things like that. And people just want to like have some sense of like how is my team trending? Are we going to be better? OTAs kind of gives you that you know hopium a little bit because there's going to be a lot of social media videos. I'm here for all of them. I want as many Jameson Williams touchdowns as I could possibly get because the JMO hype has been crazy this offseason. And so I kind of just can't wait till tomorrow because I feel like we're at least going to see at least 2 or 3 big catches from JMO.
Yeah, and like I hope he, man, I know me and you are both so high on Jameson, so yeah, and he's so fun to watch. Like he's just fun to watch run, period. But like
Mm-hmm.
in just no pads, that man is like wind. So yeah, he might be on the flag football team. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah,
It's going
I
to be
get it, man.
exciting.
It's the quietest time. We're still a little bit away. I won't lie to y'all. But then if you think about it, like the Lions, football for the Lions is going to start like before the end of July. So it's not that
And
far.
that's what as much as I'm saying like I'm probably not going to the Hall of Fame game, which I'm not. I'm going to watch that game
Me
as
too.
if like it actually matters and it
Because we're
doesn't.
nasty.
So
We're
yeah,
nasty people at the end of the day.
yeah.
Nasty, nasty junkies.
Hey, this is what it looks like to be a football fan, and I'll take it.
Nah,
There's
for
worse
real.
things that I could be.
Hundred
Absolutely.
percent. Yeah.
But with that said, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for our OTAs preview. Let us know in the comment section below what are you looking forward to most as OTAs kick off today. Like I said, if you're watching this on Wednesday, is there a player? Is there a position group that you're going to be focused on? Maybe you're focused on the coaching staff and you just want to see and hear about how the offense and defense is changing or staying the same. Let us know that stuff in the comment section below. Also, if you want to get updates on what is happening at practice, you definitely want to be checking out the prideofdetroit.com website. I believe Jeremy and Eric should be on the ground at OTAs on Friday of this week. So that's where you'll get like firsthand accounts of what's happening. And that should be a really exciting day for everyone. So definitely check out the website for all of those updates. Also, if you want to stay up to date on what we are doing over here on YouTube, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That helps out the channel immensely, but it also makes it that much easier for you guys to find our content when we decide to upload new videos or go live over here on YouTube. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you guys in the next one.